when a country is invaded by a violent aggressor, a neighbor that has for not decades, but not centuries, but in fact nearly millennia repressed its neighbors, such as Russia has. There is a right and wrong here.
After the presumed death of the Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, what next for Russia's war in Ukraine? Will his death mark a turning point or simply a continuation of a grinding descent into a stalemate as Ukraine attempts to push back against Russian-occupied territory? As that news was breaking last week about Yevgeny Prigozhin and that plane crash, that plane being shot down just north of Moscow, in the United Kingdom, the first professor of Ukrainian politics in the English-speaking world was being announced. Olga Onuch is that, and she joins us on Times Radio this afternoon. Olga, hello there.
Hello, how are you?
Yes, I'm really well. Thank you for being with us. I've been really looking forward to speaking to you. And firstly, congratulations on becoming the first professor of Ukrainian politics in the English-speaking world. A significant appointment, Olga.
Thank you. Of course, there were political scientists who have studied Ukraine for many, many years before me. So I do stand on the shoulders of giants, as it were. But it is the first professorship with the official title that includes Ukrainian politics in it. And I'm immensely proud of my university for making this happen and of being this person who gets to make history because of it. And I hope there will be many, many, many more coming up next and soon. You know, I will never forget the night of February 23rd to 24th, where I didn't sleep a wink because I knew from intelligence briefings I may have read or conversations I was having with policymakers, I knew exactly what was happening, how it was going to happen. And I just stayed up all night, knowing that the next day I probably will be on television and radio in the United Kingdom, talking to policymakers in the United Kingdom. But that night, only thinking of my friends and family in Ukraine and wondering, do I call Teta, Auntie, Ola? Do I call my best friends in Kyiv? Do I wake them up? Do I let them know what's happening? Or do I let them have one last night of not knowing the horror that they are going to be living through for now this much time? So it is a constant battle, personal and professional tensions. And all I can say is that I'm deeply proud of first of all, the Mancunian community that has supported me throughout this period, the local barista in Manchester, my bakery, folks that probably didn't know where Kyiv or Lviv was in Ukraine up until 2022, but they became incredible supporters. And certainly then my colleagues at the university stepping up to support displaced students and scholars. And then, of course, that ripple effect throughout all of the United Kingdom and not only in Whitehall, but in, pubs around the country, people really supporting Ukrainians and understanding that the personal and professional are extremely difficult at the same time.
Gosh, that's incredibly emotional, Olga. Incredibly emotional. On that point then, do you feel that academia has to be impartial on this issue, where there is clearly a right and a wrong?
Well, I think impartiality is perhaps a false nomer. We have to have to be systematic and rigorous in our analyses, right? So it's very important to work with colleagues that do keep you, in that sense, I guess, systematically focused and rigorous. I don't want to say keep you honest, because I think we're all very honest, but just making sure that you're following the data, the empirics, and not least because these issues are so important. When the British Academy is organizing events amongst scholars and interacting with policymakers in London, and folks like myself are invited to attend, it is our duty to make sure that we are presenting the policymakers with the absolute best quality of data, and not simply what we would like to be true because we have an end in mind, a normative end, a values end. Of course, there's a clear right and wrong when a country is invaded by a violent aggressor, a neighbor that has for not decades, but not centuries, but in fact, nearly millennia, repressed its neighbors, such as Russia has. There is a right and wrong here. But when we're talking about what policies should be enacted, what actions should be taken, when we're talking to folks in the military about the strategic choices they will be making, it is our duty to present as rigorous, as systematic data and not opinions, right? And that to me is very important, and it has always been important in the way I approach political science.
And do you feel that you have a responsibility in your teaching? Potentially this may happen in the time after the war, whenever that may come to pass. Do you feel like you have a responsibility to help prevent it happening again?
I think we all have a responsibility to prevent anything like this happening again.
Should that be reflected in your teaching?
I think in our teaching, our responsibility is to ensure that when we are talking with some of the brightest minds, not only from the United Kingdom, but quite frankly, in a university like Manchester, from around the world, that we are giving them the tools to look at these things critically. The events that unfold around the world, that they understand the complexities of events, but also that they don't lose this sense of what is right and wrong, right? And talking about the complexities of right and wrong, and sometimes how doing the right thing politically might be difficult, unpopular, or even uncomfortable, or may have trade-offs. And those are the kinds of conversations that we have to have with our students. And I do believe that it is my duty to guide them through that critical thinking, but not really tell them what they should be thinking and how.
Right, I see. That makes a lot of sense, yeah. Could I get your thoughts on, just briefly, we're a little bit tight on time, Olga, unfortunately, we've had some breaking news this afternoon. Could I get your thoughts on the development this week then? It does appear that Yevgeny Prigozhin was killed in that plane crash in Moscow. That at least what most sources are concluding. What do you make of that? What impact will that have?
Oh, I think it's too early to tell. Clearly, this is, I am of the same mind that we are assuming that Prigozhin is dead. We are seeing the dismantling or even the pressure starting to mount on Wagner, the paramilitary group that he led. This is not, I think, clear cut. A lot of people are, claiming that this is a victory for Putin. I think as I reported back in June when I was speaking to individuals, I think this highlights just how threatened Putin was, but what unfolded a few months ago. And exactly this threat to Putin cannot be, I don't believe, simply stamped out by one assassination. I think where there is smoke, there is fire. There are likely to be certainly other opponents that are making different calculi about what they will or will not do and how brave or not brave they will be. But this, I think, it does show that Putin felt so threatened by Prigozhin that he could not handle him being even alive, even if he was living elsewhere, and apparently in a agreement with Putin. But I think we have to be very careful about some of the assumptions we're making and analyses we're making. Obviously, this is an unfolding story. We'll see what comes next. But we know that already Putin has announced he has asked Wagnerites to swear allegiance to Russia and himself. And at the same time, we see ordinary citizens around Russia placing flowers in random places to commemorate Prigozhin and to mourn his passing. So I don't think this story is over, and I don't think it's only simply a win for Putin.